Before you ask the general question,
Yeah.
you must tell me about that lovely story about
I
There's a
did.
girl in my soup.
At 80 years old, Goldie Hawn finally breaks her silence. For the first time, she reveals the real truth about the legendary Ingrid Bergman, a truth she has carried quietly for more than half a century. Her voice trembles not with fear, but with memory. A memory of a woman whose presence could change the energy of an entire room. A woman whose elegance was almost supernatural. A woman who shaped Goldie's understanding of Hollywood long before Goldie herself became an icon. Goldie whispers Ingrid was extraordinary. There was a strength in her that I had never seen in anyone before. And just like that, a secret chapter of Hollywood unfolds. One filled with admiration, mentorship, and an unexpected emotional bond between a rising young star and one of cinema's most revered legends. But to understand why Ingrid Bergman meant so much to Goldie, to understand why this truth remained locked inside her heart for decades, we must go back to the beginning, long before the fame, the films, the laughter, and the spotlight. Here is where Goldie Hawn's real story begins. Goldie Jean Hawn was born on November 21st, 1945, in Washington, D.C., far from the shimmering lights of Hollywood. There were no film studios nearby, no red carpets, no agents knocking on her family's door, just a warm, supportive home and a little girl with a spark that seemed too big for the world she lived in. From the moment she could walk, Goldie danced. Ballet, tap, anything that allowed her to express the joy bursting inside her. Dance wasn't just a hobby, it was her language, her heartbeat, her compass. No one imagined this shy, delicate girl would one day become one of the most beloved faces in American entertainment. Not even Goldie herself. Her childhood dreams were simple: to dance, to move, to feel free. Acting, stardom, Hollywood, those were galaxies away, much too distant for a young girl who only wanted to hear the rhythm of music under her feet. Yet life has a strange way of guiding certain souls toward destiny. By her early 20s, Goldie was far from home, struggling to survive while working as a go-go dancer, pouring her energy into every performance just to make ends meet. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was raw, real, and it taught her a truth she carried forever. No dream is too small to become something extraordinary. Then one day, everything changed. A single opportunity catapulted her from dimly lit nightclubs to the brightest spotlight in America, Rowan and Martin's Laugh In, the wildly popular comedy show in 1968. Goldie didn't just appear on a screen. She exploded. Her giggle, her innocence, her quirky charm, they weren't performances, they were her. And overnight, America fell in love. That moment didn't just open a door. It blasted open a path that would lead her through triumphs, heartbreaks, reinvention, and eventually to Ingrid Bergman herself. Goldie's transition from television to film was not just a career move, it was a revelation. Hollywood quickly discovered that behind the playful innocence and bright laughter was a woman with extraordinary depth, timing, and a natural talent that could not be taught. In 1969, she shocked even herself when she landed a role in Cactus Flower, a performance that would change her life forever. This wasn't just another film role, it was the role that earned her the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, a stunning achievement for someone so new to the industry on the still learning to navigate the complexities of fame. Goldie didn't just win an Oscar, she announced to the world that she was here to stay. Through the 1970s and 1980s, she became a symbol of joy, vulnerability, and emotional brilliance. Her films weren't just movies, they were experiences audiences carried with them for years. She shined in Shampoo, showing a sharp comedic intuition. She mesmerized in Private Benjamin, blending humor with heartfelt sincerity. She warmed hearts in Overboard, creating one of Hollywood's most beloved romantic comedies. And in Foul Play, she proved once again that her presence could elevate any story, any character, any moment. Every film added a new layer to her legacy. She wasn't just funny, she wasn't just beautiful. Goldie possessed an almost magical ability to balance fragility and strength, the kind of charisma that made audiences feel like they knew her personally. But behind the scenes, Goldie was more than an entertainer. She became a beacon of positivity, kindness, and emotional resilience. Her bright blonde hair and unmistakable laugh made her recognizable, but it was her heart, genuine, warm, and deeply empathetic, that made her unforgettable. And in 2003, she took that compassion and transformed it into something much bigger than herself. She founded the Hawn Foundation and its life-changing program, Mind Up, dedicated to teaching mindfulness and emotional resilience to children across the world. Hundreds of thousands of young lives have been touched by her mission, a mission that grew from her belief that every child deserves tools to navigate the stress, fear, and uncertainty. Hollywood gave her fame, but Goldie gave the world something even more precious: hope. Even after decades in the spotlight, Goldie Hawn never faded. She simply evolved, gracefully, brilliantly, and on her own terms. The 2000s brought a new chapter, one filled not with desperation for relevance, but with effortless charm. Goldie proved that true stars never fear time, they grow brighter with it. In 2013, she surprised fans by stepping into the animated world of Phineas and Ferb. Her voice brought life to the quirky neighbor Peggy McGee. And in true Goldie fashion, she turned a small guest role into something unforgettable. Sharing animated screen time with celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay, she created a pairing no one expected, but everyone loved. Then came 2017, and with it, a triumphant return to live-action films. Alongside Amy Schumer, Goldie starred in Snatched, playing a mother whose warmth and comedic instincts mirrored the very qualities that had made her a star decades earlier. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a reminder that Goldie's magic never faded, only waited for the right moment. 2 years later, she embraced a completely different kind of role, one drenched in holiday wonder and soft, glowing warmth. Netflix's The Christmas Chronicles introduced her as the charming, gentle, and unforgettable Mrs. Claus. Audiences immediately fell in love, so much so that she returned for The Christmas Chronicles 2, stepping into a leading role that showcased the very qualities that define her: kindness, joy, and an ageless sense of enchantment. From animation to comedy to holiday magic, Goldie showed the world that she was not just a star of the past. She was a timeless artist whose light continues to glow across generations. Her career didn't slow down. It transformed, expanded, and touched new audiences: children, parents, grandparents, proving that her charm transcends eras, trends, and time itself. But her cinematic journey is only half the story, because behind the joy, behind the laughter, and behind the spotlight stood a woman living a life filled with complex love, heartbreak, resilience, and one love story that would define her forever. Goldie Hawn's life behind the camera was just as vibrant, unpredictable, and emotionally rich as the characters she brought to life on screen. Her relationships, full of passion, heartbreak, and discovery, shaped her into the woman the world admires today. Her first major commitment came in 1969 when she married dancer-turned-director Gus Triconis. Their wedding took place in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, a place that mirrored the youthful optimism beating inside her heart at the time. Two artists, two dreamers, two souls trying to build a life while navigating the unforgiving currents of Hollywood. But dreams don't always walk in the same direction. As Goldie's fame rose, the distance between them grew. Their careers pulled them into different worlds, separate rhythms, separate futures. In 1973, they separated, and by 1975, their marriage officially ended, a quiet, painful ending to her first attempt at lifelong love. After that chapter closed, Goldie stepped into a period of exploration, not of wildness, but of self-understanding. She connected with people who brought new colors into her life. She was linked to Ted Grossman, the rugged stuntman whose daring spirit both fascinated and grounded her. She shared moments with Bruno Winsol, the Swedish singer whose gentle warmth and European romanticism offered a different kind of affection. She was drawn to Franco Nero, the intense Italian actor whose charisma was as deep as his dramatic talent. None of these relationships were mistakes. Each one helped Goldie understand what she needed, what she didn't, and what she would never compromise again. Then came Bill Hudson. In 1976, Goldie married the musician best known from the Hudson Brothers. This relationship felt different, serious, committed, built on shared dreams. Together, they welcomed two children who would one day capture Hollywood in their own ways, Oliver Hudson and Kate Hudson, who would become one of the most beloved actresses of her generation. But even shared children, even shared dreams, couldn't protect them from the storms behind the scenes. By 1980, the marriage had collapsed, painfully, publicly, and with lasting emotional wounds that would ripple through their family for years. In the years that followed, Goldie continued to be linked to several high-profile men: French actor Yves Renier, television superstar Tom Selleck, and Moroccan businessman Victor Dray. Each relationship revealed something new about her: her courage, her vulnerability, her capacity for deep love. But nothing would compare to the love that came next. On Valentine's Day, 1983, Goldie's life changed forever when she and actor Kurt Russell fell into a romance that would become one of Hollywood's greatest love stories. They never married, they never needed to. Their bond transcended paper, promises, and public expectations. They welcomed a son, Wyatt Russell, built a blended family, supported one another through every high and low, and created a partnership rooted in respect, humor, and unwavering devotion. By 2018, they celebrated 35 years together, a milestone few Hollywood couples ever reach. Through heartbreaks, through triumphs, through reinvention, Goldie found the kind of love that lasts not because it is perfect, but because it is real. But among all her stories, all her loves, all her memories, there was one person who left a mark no romance ever could. A woman whose presence reshaped her understanding of art, humanity, and her own purpose. And after nearly a lifetime, Goldie was finally ready to tell the truth. At 80 years old, Goldie Hawn finally opened the door to a memory she had kept tucked away for decades. A memory of a woman who shaped not only her early career, but also her understanding of grace, humanity, and artistic truth. That woman was Ingrid Bergman. Goldie's voice softened when she first spoke of her, carrying traces of nostalgia, reverence, and something almost tender. Ingrid was extraordinary, she said, not as a dramatic statement, but as a confession from the heart. There was a poise, a strength, a grace about her that I had never seen in anyone before. To Goldie, Ingrid possessed something rare, a kind of quiet power, the kind that didn't demand attention but naturally commanded respect. And yet, Ingrid was warm, approachable, human. Goldie remembered being struck by that contradiction, a legendary figure who carried herself like royalty, yet treated everyone with a kindness that felt deeply genuine. Their connection began during Goldie's breakthrough film Cactus Flower in 1969. While the world remembers the film for earning Goldie her Academy Award, Goldie remembers something more intimate, the way Ingrid treated her. Goldie wasn't just learning how to act in those early days, she was learning how to exist in Hollywood. And Ingrid, without ever making it obvious, became an unexpected mentor. I watched her and learned so much just by observing, Goldie revealed. It wasn't only how she delivered lines, it was how she entered a room, how she treated every single person on set, how she carried herself as both a star and a human being. These weren't acting lessons, they were life lessons. Goldie described Ingrid as a lighthouse, steady, illuminating, humble in her brilliance. She remembered a moment that stayed with her for 50 years. One afternoon, Ingrid sat with her for over an hour, not talking about movies, not about Hollywood, but about life. Fears, dreams, relationships, the things that make us human. She made you feel like you mattered, Goldie whispered. Like your thoughts were important, like your voice was worth hearing. For a young Goldie, emotionally fragile, brilliantly talented, and suddenly thrust into fame, those conversations became anchors. They shaped her, strengthened her, and gave her a model of the kind of artist she wanted to become. Decades later, Goldie still carries Ingrid's lessons everywhere she goes. Every time she steps onto a set, every time she builds a character from the inside out, every time she treats someone with compassion, in a world that can be unforgiving. Ingrid Bergman didn't just influence Goldie's acting, she influenced her soul. And that is why, at 80, Goldie finally felt ready to speak, to honor a woman whose guidance ran deep but quietly, whose legacy lived not only on a screen, but inside the hearts she touched. Goldie's revelation wasn't gossip, it wasn't fame-driven, it was gratitude, pure and profound, a passing of wisdom from one generation of Hollywood to the next. Goldie Hawn's reflection on Ingrid Bergman did more than open an old memory. It revealed the invisible thread connecting two eras of Hollywood. A thread woven not from fame or awards or public admiration, but from humanity. Goldie described Ingrid not as the world saw her, the glamorous icon with an untouchable aura, but as she truly was, a woman who laughed freely, a woman who loved deeply, a woman who cared with sincerity, a woman who saw the people around her not as props in her life, but as souls with stories of their own. It was this private version of Ingrid that stayed with Goldie for more than 50 years. She recalled moments that shaped her, small gestures, gentle encouragement, quiet wisdom exchanged away from cameras and scripts. Ingrid showed her that true artistry wasn't found in perfection, but in authenticity, in being real, being human, being kind when no one is watching, She taught me that talent alone isn't enough, Goldie said. You need humility, curiosity, generosity. You need to respect the people you work with, no matter who they are. These lessons seeped into Goldie's every performance, every decision, every interaction on set. She wasn't just acting in the spirit of Ingrid Bergman, she was living it. As Goldie aged, she found herself reflecting more often on the legacy she would leave behind. And in those reflections, Ingrid's presence always returned like a guiding star. The truth Goldie finally revealed at 80 wasn't simply admiration, it was a tribute, a way of saying thank you to the woman who quietly shaped her during the most fragile moments of her young career. Ingrid Bergman didn't just open doors in cinema, she opened hearts. And Goldie Hawn, with her warmth, her laughter, her lifelong kindness, became one of the clearest reflections of Ingrid's influence. This revelation reminded the world that Hollywood's greatest legacies aren't always the films we watch, but the people who change us along the way. As Goldie Hawn stands today, 80 years old, graceful, radiant, and as full of life as ever, her story feels like a perfect circle. A journey that began with dance shaped by hardship, lifted by destiny, and illuminated by extraordinary people she met along the way. And among all those people, Ingrid Bergman remains one of the brightest lights. Goldie often reflects on how unusual it was for someone at Ingrid's level, an international icon, a woman whose name alone carried cinematic history, to show such warmth to a young, rising actress. But that was the essence of Ingrid, a legend who never needed to prove she was one. Through Goldie's confession, we now see just how deeply Ingrid's presence carved itself into her heart. This wasn't just admiration. It was gratitude for mentorship that was never formally announced, for wisdom given freely, for compassion that made a young artist believe she belonged in a world that often pushes people away. Goldie says that every time she steps onto a set, even now, she carries Ingrid's lessons with her. It's about truth, honesty, and respect. That's what Ingrid taught me. She learned that acting isn't simply making people laugh or cry. It's honoring the craft, honoring the people around you, honoring yourself. In speaking her truth about Ingrid, Goldie didn't just share a memory, she honored a legacy, a bridge connecting Hollywood's golden age to today's ever-changing world. Because behind every beloved performance, behind every award, behind every moment of laughter and joy, lies a quiet foundation built by those who guided us, inspired us, and believed in us. Goldie Hawn has spent her life bringing joy to millions. But this revelation reminds us that even the brightest stars were once guided by light from others. At 80, she has finally voiced her gratitude, not for publicity, not for attention, but because some stories deserve to be told, and some legacies deserve to shine forever. And so the truth stands. Ingrid Bergman was not just a Hollywood legend. She was a mentor, a friend, and a silent architect of Goldie Hawn's extraordinary journey.